Okay, we're continuing on the bottom of page 28 with nesting. And we saw in our examples of the not function how we can have a function inside of an argument of another function, and that is what we call nesting. So the key to combining multiple calculations into a function in a single cell is called nesting. Nesting is simply using a function as an argument within another function. Whatever value the nested function returns becomes the value that the main function uses for that particular argument. And for nested function syntax on page 29, as is the case with all other Excel functions, the key to understanding nested functions is understanding nested function syntax. Because the particular syntax of any one nested function depends on the particular syntax of the first level function and all of the other functions you wish to nest, this section will mainly focus on presenting a couple of examples of nested functions and then breaking down the syntax into chunks to examine the specific calculation. So first, there's some points that you need to remember regarding nested functions. Any function used as an argument must return a value of the same data type as is required for the argument. You do not include the equal sign before a nested function, but all remaining function syntax is the same as it usually is for the function. You still need to include that equal sign in front of the first level function. Each function, both the first level function and all nested functions, must have a complete set of parentheses. These can become tricky to track, but they must all be present. So however many opening parentheses you have in a whole entire function, you need that same amount. Double check to make sure you have that same amount as ending parentheses as well. So we'll take a look at a nested function. Here I have some sales reps, their total sales, their unit sales, and whether they receive a bonus or not. So if you take a look at the contents of cell D2, you can see that this is actually an AND function nested within an IF function. So we know that the first argument of an IF function is a logical test. So remember, for nested functions, again, you're always working from the inside out. So we need to find the value of this AND function. So is B2 greater than 3,000? B2 is $4,133, so that is a yes. That returns a true value. The second argument of the AND function is C2 greater than 2,000. Is the unit sales greater than 2,000? $1,818. That is a no, so that returns a value of false. So inside our AND function, we have a true value and we have a false value. Remember, any one argument being false automatically makes the whole entire AND function false as well. So that false becomes the first argument in our if function. So if false, our second argument is the value that it will return if true. The third argument is the value the whole entire function will return if false. So we actually have a logical value simply as false. So that's going to return that third argument of no bonus. So let's take a look at for constants. Again, you start with your second level function, the one that's nested inside of our first if argument. Is B3, moving down here, constants is total sales, is that greater than 3,000? Answer is yes, so that returns true. Is her unit sales, C3, greater than 2,000? That is a false. One false in an AND function returns a false. So our if function is going to return the value in our if false argument, no bonus. For Victor, is Victor's total sales greater than 3,000? No, that's a false. I don't even need to look at the second one, because remember, if we have any one value argument in an AND function that's false, the whole thing is automatically false. So that too will return the value of no bonus. Let's take a look at Cedric. Is B5 greater than 3,000? Is his total sales greater than $3,000? That's a yes. That returns a true value. Is C5 his unit sales greater than 2,000? Yes, it is. So that returns a true. So now we have two arguments inside our AND function that return true. So they're all true. That returns a value for the whole entire AND function of true as well. So that becomes the first argument in our if function. So we have an answer of true. So the argument value of true in our if function is going to be bonus. So Cedric will receive a bonus. Timmy, is his total sales greater than 3,000? Yes, that's a true. Is his unit sales greater than 2,000? Yes, that's a true. So both true arguments for our AND function. So that AND function returns a value of true, which becomes our argument for our if function. So the value if true is going to be bonus here as well. All right, so nested functions. You can have many, many levels of nested functions. If you turn to page 31 of your book, there are some guidelines for combining functions. As long as you understand the syntax of all functions you wish to nest, you can combine up to 64 levels of functions within a single first level function. So you could have a function inside of a function inside of a function inside of up to 64 times. We will not be doing that. We will keep ours simple. We only go to the second level, a function nested inside of a function. Even those are sometimes very tricky to actually calculate, to define. So we'll only be doing two second level functions. But you must carefully understand these guidelines. To nest a function within another, include the nested function as an argument in the first level function. Subsequent lower level functions can be nested within the nested functions. You must include the equal sign only for the first level function. So only at the very beginning of that first function. You can see the AND function inside of my if does not contain an equal sign. So do not include an equal sign for any of the nested functions. The rest of the syntax for all nested functions remains the same. All functions, nested or otherwise, must include a full set of parentheses. So again, however many beginning parentheses I have, I must also have that amount of ending parentheses. All functions used as an argument must return a value of the same data type required for the argument. You can combine nested functions and other calculations within a single argument. For example, an argument that needs to be a numeric value can be made up of a function multiplied by a constant or by the value in a cell, as long as it returns that same type of value that you need. You can include more than one nested function within a single argument. All right, Your next video will be activity 1.5 on page 32.